friends, welcome back to the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we take the movies we love, break them apart to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, here on the October Mega Marathon. 31 days, 31 pods. We are nearing the end of the Phantasm franchise. We hope you guys have been enjoying the journey so far through Texas Chainsaw Massacre and now through Phantasm. Joining me, as always, through this film franchise journey, our returning friend and co-host, Carmelita Valdez McKoy. Welcome back.
Hi, friend.
Would you like to tell the people where they can find you before we get rolling here?
Sure. So, Film Alchemist listeners can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd. Same handle for both, at Carmelita Says.
That's right. And if you want to make sure you're getting every episode this month, all 31 days, we do have a pod for every day. But you got to go to patreon.com/filmalchemistpod to get all of them. We work hard over there. We have a huge Patreon exclusive library. The patrons actually voted on the 2 exclusive episodes they wanted this month. So lots of fun over there if you can and you're able and want to. Patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. All right. Another cool thing we're doing, you can check out Misfit Parade everywhere. To see some short films that I'm involved in. If you want to see some weird shit there, we're on all the socials and YouTube, Misfit Parade. That's it. That's the end of the plugs. We've come to the end of the Phantasm franchise. Just kidding. There's actually one extra for some reason. But this was supposed to be the end, right? Originally, I think the script was actually called Phantasm Ends. So this is Phantasm 4. This is where the rubber meets the road until there's just no more road for said rubber to meet.
They run out of road.
This is kind of the last Phantasm movie. Phantasm 5 is its own unique addition to the franchise, which has its own merits. But this is kind of the end of Phantasm proper, right? This is the last proper Phantasm we'll get. So as we've done with all of them, we thought we'd read through some trivia. This one does not have interesting trivia. But I thought, what the hell? Why break it up, right?
Why not?
So we'll start here on IMDb trivia. After very mixed reaction and some harsh criticism in relation to Phantasm 3, that seems hard, right? Coscarelli decided that he had already gone too far in the action comedy direction. He wanted to take it back to its roots, crafting a low-budget sequel, more focused on the horror and surreal aspects of the story. The cool thing about this one is they actually had all this unused footage that they had recovered and found that was not in Phantasm 1. So they have this really cool extra footage from the first one that kind of gives it this traveling through time journey, which I thought is one of the coolest things in the movie.
Very cool.
All right, next. The synopsis for the canceled Phantasm End scripts written by Roger Avery goes as follows. We don't need to read all this, do we? The year is 2012. And there are only 3 states left between New York and California in the wasteland known as the Plague Zone. The tall man controls everything, but the interesting thing about this script is that the tall man's palace is the Mormon mausoleum. And yeah, he makes creatures infected with tall man's blah, blah, blah. They send in high-tech troops, whatever. It's very strange. It almost sounds a little like Phantasm 5. All right, we don't need to read all that. But yeah. Next, the song that plays during the end credits, Have You Seen It?, was actually composed and performed by Reggie Bannister and his band under the name Reggie B in the Yiz Wailin' Ya Doggies. That's a real name.
What? Wait, what?
Reggie B and the Yiz Wailin' Ya Doggies.
Oh.
It is included in their 1996 album, Fool's Paradise. This movie was filmed in 23 days, not surprising. At around 5 minutes, Angus Scrimm was suffering from laryngitis. So this is when we first see Reggie, when we pick up right where 3 left off. Right. During the filming of the opening scene, that's why his usually deep, tall man voice sounds more like Orson Welles. That's what IMDb said, not me.
Yeah, I wouldn't have said Orson Welles.
I wouldn't have said that either. But, so this Phantasm, this is probably thought to be the end, right? It has not gotten a lot of love on part 2 and part 3. The budgets keep shrinking. The days keep shrinking. So they go for what feels like an attempt to close this story up. I don't know if they succeed on that element, right? I do think they add a lot of really fun elements to this movie. I kind of thought the idea to go back to the more horror surrealism was a good one, right? I think after part 3, it's kind of hard to do better than, Rocky and Tim and the whole gang.
Yeah.
That was going to be hard to redo. So I think they were making good decisions, right? And again, I think the big benefit of this one, it's kind of this meditative movie, if that makes sense. I don't know if anyone would agree. But them just driving, through the desert, right? We're just driving southwest to an unknown place, right? Death Valley. Of course, it's Death Valley. Right?
Of course.
They're driving out there, and we have Mike contemplating his existence, right? His run since he did this great thing, right? Remember the last day before he came. And they cut to this archival footage of him hopping on the back of Reggie's ice cream truck. Reggie sees him. Now we're back with Reggie, right? Where he's the soul now, right? He's a soldier against this army of the undead, right? He's going to do all this. I think he even says, like, I was a small man. I was an ice cream man by trade.
An ice cream vendor by
trade. I was
trade.
an ice cream vendor by trade, but now I'm a soldier. And I was like, I love Reggie. But we start off with the balls. Again, the tall man, for no good reason, does the... you have more to do, right? He says, take care how you play the game. The final game begins now. What? Why? And then we get a swarm of orbs. You're like, all right, that's cool. Boom, we're right back into Phantasm 4. So resetting our minds to Phantasm 4, Carmelita, what are you thinking as this movie gets going? What do you love about Phantasm 4 to kick us off?
So, like yourself, I really appreciate that this is, I would agree, more meditative. It's a little more serious. Mm-hmm. And something I noticed, because I ended up watching this twice, because as we get talking, and anyone who's already seen this knows, it cuts back and forth between Mike in Death Valley and Reggie trying to get there. Mm-hmm. And the Mike stuff is definitely more somber, more like existential.
Right. What is he becoming?
Right. Like he's even starts to write his will at one point. He's sitting in the back of a hearse writing his will.
Yeah, he's half writing like, Reggie, you'll never believe it. Also, don't follow me. I give up. Like,
also,
what?
Don't follow me. And Reggie's segments are a little more like 2 and 3, a little more action, a little more Reggie chasing tail. So
Always
there's a nice juxtaposition of the two. Which I really appreciate. All that archival footage, all those outtakes. Like at first I thought I was losing my mind. I was like, wait, I don't remember this from the first movie.
Yes.
And then I was like, did they have all this deleted scenes and outtakes?
It's pretty wild, right? It's kind of the great gift of this film that most other horror films don't have by the time they get to number 4.
Yeah.
And the two big ones, right, is we have the Reggie. I love the ice cream mobile shot, right? Him hopping in. Yeah. They also have the thing at the very end, where he's fucking like, I just hear it on the wind, right? It's kind of this weirdly like perfect end for this movie that they had in the can for the old one. And then the big one is that the tall man, because at one point Mike is in like a, fucking Soundgarden video. He's trying to hang himself, right? He's like this weird, like, I don't know what I am. He's going in between.
It's totally a Soundgarden
video. Right? He's going between worlds. He has no idea what's happening. He's like, I'm going to hang myself and be over it so I won't become the tall man. Death is no escape from me, boy. Brings him down. But what we realize is that they had caught the tall man with the Hemi Cuda in the first one.
Yeah.
Lassoed him, right? Noosed him up the tree. And he was just sitting there dormant. And then Mike goes back to check him out, climbs the tree, and he snaps back. He's like, if you let me go, I promise I'll just leave, blah, blah, blah. We see a scene where Mike actually let the tall man escape. This could be the start of this unanswered question forever in the franchise. Why does he care so fucking much about Mike? Right? Yeah. Did he psychically link with Mike and bring him to that tree to let him go? Did Mike letting him go set something ablaze in his mind that Mike could be one of his henchmen? Again, the movie still never answers anything like that. Never. Like, and it's just the most unsatisfactory problem with the franchise is we never really just say what this is. But that scene of him letting the tall man go, I think is an incredible thing. And I think it's actually better. Had it been in the first one, it's all right. It's a stupid thing people do in a horror movie. When you show that it's hidden and Mike has held his guilt for it all this time, and that's why these two may be drawn to, it's actually pretty amazing, like, secret torpedo that this movie has buried in the middle of it.
It's very clever. The editing, the way that the outtakes that they chose, very clever. Things like that recontextualize the entire journey for us.
Yeah, what were the chances they had like 3 good scenes left that just didn't make it in? That's crazy. That's an unbelievable thing.
All of the really sentimental stuff, the older I get, the more sentimental I am about like seeing the progression of time through characters and franchises. Like when I went and saw the last Rambo movie, at the end they do this like John Rambo through time montage, and I teared up. Like I got emotional. You're
crying at your own journey through time. Yeah.
Yes.
And Rambo's just our permission to cry about that.
Exactly. So that, and even having not been a lifelong fan of Phantasm, coming to it later in life, it got me. All of that real sentimental, these 3 friends, and look how young they were, and look at everything
they have that great shot where Reg is like, fuck Mike, I'm not helping anymore. And Jody's like, man, I wish it would have been different. And they cut to this like Bud Light commercial.
Yes.
Of them on the hood of the car, pulled off the PCH, just strumming and drinking beer. And I was like, I do feel bad for them, right? You see them through this journey. You see them young. You see them in the Bud Light commercial. And it's just this fucking trauma did come and just took all that shit from them. Right?
Yeah,
like, Reggie and the tall man are looking fucking old at the start of this movie.
I know.
They're looking old.
I know.
And you're like, he was like a little too old to be an ice cream man to like old. Like Reggie's best years are gone. This guy took all that shit. Took everything. I think it's the great addition to the franchise that this one has. Yes. Is that really, really tying us into how long of a journey this has been? A lot of horror franchises, right? If you think about the big ones, right? By the time you're to Halloween, Nightmare, Friday, they're kind of starting to break timeline.
Yes.
Right? They're kind of their own journeys. The previous movies don't matter as much. I guess you could say Nightmare still hangs on a little bit, that they're kind of connective.
Yeah.
Because he like pees Freddy awake or whatever in part 4. But for the most part, we're kind of going our own way. It's kind of nice that Phantasm is this contiguous story like this. And having that tied in all the way to the beginning. I mean, just the miracle that they had this footage.
It's incredible.
And that they wrote this movie around it. I do think that's a pretty incredible addition, right? Like there are images that are classic Phantasm, right? The orbs flying out, right? That was cool. There are these things you see, like when he fights the fucking zombie cop, and maybe that's zombie Tim in the back. We don't know who's in that trunk. That was kind of a bummer. But you see this like this version of a tale that is the same, but it's also stopping to remind us where we've been.
Yeah.
And I think it's that extra weird layer that makes this a very worthy, like had this been the last Phantasm, I think you'd say it goes pretty much. The one thing, this one does not have a strong opening. It still has the weak ending, right? The weak ending is the Phantasm go-to, right? As much as I love Phantasm, I think you'd say all those endings are not good. And then they kind of rewrite them at the start of the next movie to be better.
Right.
This one kind of follows
it doesn't really matter. Like they get a pass.
Right. Like when Reggie's covered in orbs, and Tim's gone and he just goes, well, we'll see you at the end of the movie. You're like, oh no, that's the first opening of a Phantasm movie that doesn't go the hardest. Like that sucks.
Right.
And so this one's just letting you know it will look the same. It will feel the same. What does Jody say in the other one, right? Seeing is easy, believing is, or understanding is hard. It takes time.
Yeah, takes time.
And this one's letting you know we're going to kind of meander our way through a Phantasm movie.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of, instead of like the kind of vignette prog rock horror that we've been getting, this one really is just guys kind of driving and thinking back on the ride.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate
contemplating their past.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty big step down from part 3. But that was bound to happen, right? But I think
Sure.
Instead of trying to just add all these things that aren't gonna, like, we're not gonna keep building this tower, right? The Phantasm Tower had kind of run its course. I think sitting there and just paying homage to it, right, one last time, that kind of works for me in this movie.
Yeah. I think, too, just, like, thinking about middle age, because I am now a middle-aged person.
Yep.
You know, yeah, you do a lot. It kind of goes with the territory, kind of thinking back through your life, remembering things, reassessing. Where have I been? Where am I now? Where am I going?
Yeah.
And
what has this fight been for?
Yeah, exactly. No, and the pace of this and the way that this movie is structured kind of feels like what your average person does at this point in their life, where you're kind of like, okay, most of my life is behind me.
Right. You're one of the two, right? You're Mike sitting there and being like, I'm seeing things in the rearview mirror. And the tall man's talking to me and crawling into the casket portal and I'll write by candlelight in the fucking casket. Like, you're that middle-aged person. Or you're Reggie, who's like, another girl. Right?
I'm going to let down my ponytail and light these candles. Reggie, there's a huge... Oh,
it's great. Because he still always has the guitar, even though we've seen his car crash like 10 times.
Yeah.
The guitar always makes it. I will say there's a huge piece of information in this movie that is the most memorable thing about it. But to me, the best thing in the movie is the orb tits.
Oh, for sure.
Because at first you're like, is this a dream? And they're like, no, this is real.
No,
Two
real.
orbs came to kill Reggie and thought, let's have some fun. And somehow saw her tits out, removed the meat. It's kind of like, it reminded me of Anchorman when he's like, Baxter, did you get that out of the fridge? I'm not even mad. That's impressed. Because I was like, it's such a stupid thing that doesn't make any sense. But I love it so much. Because again, Reggie's doing that. He's doing the like, well, here's the whole story. She's changing and like hand brawling.
Yes.
Right? She's kind of giving him the signs. I was like, are they going to let Reggie smash? No. And then she's just like, sorry, man, you're crazier than me. Can't. And he's still kind of a little aggressive, but not like we was with Rocky. Like, he subsides a little.
Yeah,
he wakes
kind
up
of
in the middle of the night.
Faster.
Yeah, and he sees her tits moving, and he goes, groovy. Or far out, whatever he said.
Out.
Yeah,
he
far
out. And the movement is not
thing,
natural. This is not like bouncing titty action.
No.
There's like a weird movement.
It's like those
shirt.
massage chairs at the mall.
Yes.
Right.
So what he thought was happening, like, Reggie, when was the last time you actually saw breasts move?
Yeah.
That you didn't pick up on the fact that something is wrong.
Something's very wrong. She's no longer under the cover, so I'm like, did she go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and that's where the orbs hollowed her tits out?
Could be.
I have so many questions. But then the movie immediately, by showing me Reggie ripping her top open, because that's his answer.
Of course.
I don't even know if I blame him in that moment, right? If this was Reggie trying to, like, sneak a peek, I don't know if he's being altruistic here or if he's just being a creep.
I mean, maybe both. Reggie is kind of both.
He's always kind of both.
Yeah.
But the moment they show the orb tits,
it's amazing.
You're like, thank God for this decision. Like, I love this for this movie. I love it.
It's good.
Yeah, and Reggie gets stabbed in the hand. His fucking hand gets burned up. You're just like, this is awesome. And so we still have, this is the thing. This movie didn't go like fully somber, right?
No.
It's not like the Evil Dead remake where it's like, we're going to be the hardest you've ever seen. That's still fucking classic Phantasm fun.
Yes.
That's still really fun. And then we cut back to Soundgarden videos, and then we come back to do Reggie stuff. I think they find a pretty nice balance in this movie.
It's a good balance. And it is, like, it can be, there was a couple of times the first time I watched it that I had to, like, rewind because I was like, whoa, wait. Because it's cutting back and forth between the two journeys. And I'd be like, okay, wait. I need to, like, get myself back.
Split narrative is almost never something I love. It feels like where it's like you have two stories that are not enough and you're like, I'll combine them. Like that one Beatles song.
Right.
You know, A Day in the Life where Lennon's like, yeah, well, I got this 30 seconds. And McCartney's like, I got this too. Right? They didn't even like change them to fit. And then everyone's like, wow, what a dark and crazy decision. You're like, yeah, that's just two incomplete assignments stapled together. And this movie has a lot of that. This movie does have a lot, because I think with Mike, like, I love the line that the tall man says early to him, right? When he's in the back of and he's like, the coach will drive itself. There's this inevitability to where Mike's going. And the tall man just says, you have no one but me. And in a weird way, it kind of perfectly drives home this trauma theme of the franchise, right? Is that really is all he has left. He ran away from Reggie for no real reason. He's starting to transform. He doesn't know. But his whole life has been consumed by this one terrible day. And so I think there is something philosophically about that I like, right? The monster is all that Mike has left. And then Reggie feels the same, right? As he has nothing left. He can walk from the tall man, but he might as well see it through. So he still has at least Mike and the tall man left. So I think I kind of like where the headspace exists in this movie. Again, I think the jumping back and forth nature kind of cripples both stories at times.
Sometimes.
I don't know if you
I
felt
like
that
that
way.
I like that it's balancing, like you said.
Yes, I like that.
We're balancing the tone, and we're getting the two different kind of distinct flavors that we've gotten in some of the previous films, and they're all in this one film, which is why this would have been a great ending. That blending of
Reggie
things.
and the cop, Reggie and the tits, Mike's existentialism.
Yeah.
Like, you get a nice little back and forth.
Yeah, but there were times where, we're getting somewhere with Mike's story. Because there's a lot of moving parts to this. Mike going in and out of portals, conjuring portals, going back and finding out the identity of the tall man and how the tall man became the tall man.
This is
and
important.
Then we cut to Reggie. And then it was like, wait, but can we go back?
Yeah. It's like, can we learn more? It's like, no, tits. And you're like, all right. Like,
Okay.
I don't hate it. Like, at first I was mad, but now I kind of like it. We have to stop, because this is where this hits the road. This is the movie where, because the psychic grandma comes back. We kind of were making fun of that in the last episode.
Yeah. Psychic
grandma comes back, and she is possibly hit the tall man's wife. So what we learn is that Jebidah Morningstar. What a perfect fucking name, right?
Morningside,
yes. Jebidah Morningside, right? I was thinking Morningstar like Lucifer. Morningside.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean,
maybe Jebidah Morningside, right? That he was this like battlefield doctor, right? And so he's fighting his way through the unbalanced nature of life and death. He's a doctor who wants to help people. And so he settles somehow on it's this frequency thing. And he builds these portals. God knows how he does it in the old pioneer times. And Mike shows up. He's like, can I help you? Your clothes aren't the same. And this is a completely different Angus Scrimm than we've seen in the franchise.
Yeah, very friendly, cordial.
Yeah, just like a nice small-time doctor, right? A small-town doctor. And the old lady's like, let him be, Jebidah. Like, she's some kind of crazy person. Did she also travel through? And so when we meet her in the first one, she's trying to stop the husband that she at one time empowered. We never learned that.
I don't know.
Right? Because the thing about her from that porch, she's like, let him be. Like, don't go chasing waterfalls. And then to where we see her in part one, she's this bad guy. But then when she's in the limo with Mike, she's kind of smiling and cackling.
Yeah, it's weird.
Like that she's maybe able to stop where it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
What we learn is that he's going to travel dimensions to save all these people who die. But somehow on his journey, somehow going to that Led Zeppelin planet that we've seen a bunch, he is changed and altered in some way.
Right.
That there's multiple tall men. He's in all these universes. And now he is just a slaver and a warlord. And so how that disconnect happens, the movie never settles on, right? There's an idea at the start when Mike first goes in the portal and he's like, be careful what you look for. You just might find it. And the tall man smiles. And so I was like, is he directing Mike to stop him? Or is he smiling knowing that this is like a Terminator paradox where Mike is going to go back and create the small man, right? The classic bootstrap paradox.
Sure, yeah.
What do you think is happening with the tall man in this moment? Because the smile is so out of place to me.
It is, and I tend to think that That it's the latter, something like that. Like, this thing is set in motion.
Yeah.
You can't stop it.
Right.
Go back all you want.
Like
You're
John Connor sending his own dad back to knock his mom up.
Right. Right. Like, this is just how it's going to go down.
Yeah.
And you can go and see it's not going to change anything.
Right.
And there is, like, later on when, you know, Mike's big plan for hanging himself, after that doesn't work, then he creates this portal and goes back and finds out about Jebidah Morningside. And then he says, you know, his plan is to try and change the past. And then Jody tells him, we're not in the same dimension. You can't change it.
Yeah, you can't, like, interact with him. Because
right.
as Jebidah takes the first step through, then the tall man comes back through.
Right. Yeah, Jody says really ominous that Jebidah never came back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he went through that portal that day, and that was the end of him.
Yeah, that he can never be killed, but maybe he would not exist. They mention how there's this risk of infection if they stay in these, like, past moments for a long time.
Yeah, what is that?
That, to me, the infection is the classic time travel infection of mind. This idea that if you start thinking that somehow the answer is these portals to the past, that you're only going to change it and make it worse. And that is how Mike would become the new tall man.
Right.
Because now he's going to go back to balance life and death, and God knows where he ends up. So I think that's the infection he's talking about. It's kind of... Because that's what I mean. The movie gives us these, you know, I only thought cars like that blew up in the movies. Or Reggie getting suited up in his ice cream man outfit. And while that's happening, you're like...
He's so precious.
But what was Morningside's goal? Like, does he remember who Morningside is?
Right.
Was he made an orb fast? And if he's made an orb, who made him? And what's their mission? Right? Like, is he the boss or is he an underling? Like, you know what I mean? You start... running through these, like, wait, now you're just asking me... You told me that he was a small-time doctor in their hometown. But now you've just asked me 50 more questions and just won't answer any of them.
Right.
And I was like, I know that's Phantasm in a nutshell.
It is.
But this one has finale written all over it, and it gets frustrating. It's frustrating because I feel like part 3 added all of this great lore, and this one's like, now let's say what that lore means. And I love that decision if it pays off a little more. Him being a small-time doctor.
Come on, Don.
Yes, him being a small-town doctor doesn't answer any of my questions about the motivation of this guy.
Right.
It might explain why he yearns for his human affection when he fucks people before he kills them.
Could
there's
be.
Some part of the doctor in there still, and
he hasn't done that in a long time.
That was only part 1.
Only part 1.
He switched to the woman, and we'll see that again. But only had coitus in the first movie. When he was just like getting his feet wet, and then he's like, oh, now I got to take over the whole world. So I don't have time for nuts anymore.
No time for that.
But yeah, so you're just like, and then Reggie's like, you know what I should fight in? My ice cream man outfit. And you're like, wait, but what? Like, what? Why? What is the grandma doing? What is Morningstar hoping to achieve? Can they reach that human part of him? And that's the problem. We just never get back to the movie then kind of devolves into this. Now we have to fight in Death Valley. And we never get back to paying off what that means. Because I was waiting. I was like, if you're going to do this version of the story, there has to be a moment where Morningside's humanity pours through the tall man edifice, right? That's why you show us that story.
Sure, yeah, you would think.
But as soon as they just go, it's a multiverse, you go, but why?
What?
But why? Tell me why this is happening. And they don't. That's kind of the problem. I feel like the start of the movie I'm pretty in on. And by the time we get to the end, it's like, but why have we done this journey?
Yeah.
Why make him a small-timey doctor instead of a mysterious alien warlord if you don't want it? It explains the slavery thing, maybe.
Maybe.
It explains
Civil War era. I don't know.
why he's pretty into slaves. I don't remember that everyone in that
I think they
flashback
were
seemed
u-
to have
but
a
they-
gray coat.
The caps
was black
looked like
and white.
Union caps to me, though.
Yeah, maybe because it was black and white, I just assumed they were gray. But I was like, maybe he's an old-timey Confederate doctor in Oregon. And that's how...
I don't know. I did like the touch that it was Civil War because that's when they first started embalming bodies, was in the Civil War. That's when that
Oh, dude,
got
that's when they did the
popularized.
needle brain. It's like, oh, fuck.
Right.
Oh, that's so gross. Yeah, no, it was cool. I was just like, God damn it. Because if this movie was originally going to be the end of the franchise, it just seems so shitty to not, like, why tell us he's that character and not utilize that in some way? Like, that's a bombshell to drop in the fourth movie of the franchise. That's a huge addition to the mythology. You know what I mean? And they just let it go, right? It reminds me of, like, one of my greatest horror movie series sins ever is when they start the Curse of the Thorn thing with Michael Myers.
Right.
They're like, it's druidic astrology. And you're like, what? And then the next movie, they're like, psych. And you're like,
you never hear about it again.
What?
Yeah.
What is happening?
But what about the
hate that
druids?
shit. If you're going to ask a question or pose a piece of evidence, you have to tell me how that fits the quilt.
Right.
If you're sprinkling that into my soup, I want to know it's edible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to be biting my soup and be like, wait, is that a bouncy ball in here? What?
I feel like, too, it's like they left us hanging in the middle of a sentence because it would be cool to know more about what happened to Jebidah when he passed through that portal.
Yes.
That he never came back and became the tall man, because presumably that's what would happen to Mike if the tall man prevails.
Yes, a man who feels unbalanced about the unfair nature of life and death, right? He he comes back as a person who now is like factory milling through dead bodies to enslave them after death and destroy entire populations of who knows how many planets. Where is that step? The small-time doctor who wants to cure death to the death merchant of all time who, once you're dead, he can make you an undead, unfeeling minion? Is that his great, like you know, it's the classic joke, like Marvel's, like when Marvel said, we'll rewrite Thanos from the comics, and if we just get rid of half of everyone, that'll solve everything. When with the glove, he could just snap and make twice as much of everything. Right? He could make double the planets, double the food, double the air, double the clean water. Right? He could just be like, pedophiles, we don't need those. Like, with a little bit more thinking, Thanos could really fix things. Instead of just saying, let's kill everyone, right? And the comics, Thanos has a boner for the actual woman visage of death. I actually have it on my desk.
Oh, nice.
That's what points at me when I'm not writing enough.
YouTube watchers will get a chance to see that.
Lady Death. It's essentially the classic death we know, but with huge cans. Like, I don't know how she's a skeleton, but has huge tits.
It adds to the allure.
She takes them from random bodies, but Thanos wants to kill enough people to impress her. He's in love with her. And then Marvel said, no, let's do this. And as soon as it came out, we're like, that's the dumbest, most ill-conceived idea. Like, they thought that was a really cool ethics question, right? They thought they were doing, if there's one kid on a train track, or there's 100 adults on the other, like 190-year-olds on the other, and you have to choose who dies. What do you choose? And I'm like, I would choose none, right? Like, I could just choose none, right? I don't have to make that fucking choice. This is a dumb thing, right? That's what Marvel did.
Sure. He
could actually fix the universe, but he doesn't. So the tall man is a guy who wants to conquer death and somehow ends up becoming the ultimate merchant of death.
Yeah.
Tell us how. Yes. Tell us why. Even when Marvel did that, Thanos watched his home planet be overrun. And that's why they should have killed everyone. And you're like, okay, he's a guy who didn't learn the lesson, right?
Sure.
As stupid as it is, it's one of the dumbest things in a huge movie I've ever fucking seen. Ever. Ever. And I know Marvel people hate when I talk shit on Marvel because they're the greatest thing that's ever happened to cinema. But that is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in a movie. This is that. Like, why add this thing, right? Thanos had a mission.
Yeah.
Right? And as dumb as it is, they made me believe that Thanos was stupid enough to get it.
Sure.
Jebidah had a mission. How did he go so fucking awry?
Right.
He wanted to give up every bit of human
turn?
in him. Yeah, to be like a skin suit with an orb mind.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe he's propagating his minds with the dwarves and the orbs, right? And he thinks by killing the flesh, he's saving himself. I mean,
Maybe?
I can sit here and maybe write something in my mind that works for that. But why not at least let the movie address that?
Sure. If you're going to bring it up.
If you're going to bring it up. Because
Yeah.
that's the thing. We can probably sit here and between the two of us, draw a fucking line between those two characters.
Sure.
If you put that on screen, that's your job.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Should we have to do that legwork?
And I think there's something to leaving images for us to wrestle with, like some movies.
Yes,
do
enjoy that.
This is not an introspective movie.
No.
Right? Like, it's not. It's us having one last ride with our friends. To your point, I'm with you. I do get nostalgic when I'm like, look at it, they were young and happy, and now they're old and sad. I'm like, I feel that. I feel that.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, like, that hits too close to home. But this is not a movie of great introspection.
No.
I think they owe it to the fans after 4 movies to be like, Don Coscarelli, what do you think?
Right.
What do you think? What do you think this should be?
Because it can be whatever you want it to be. You wrote this.
Right. And this feels like an ending. Like, yes, you could say maybe he's like, in part 5, we'll get there. We didn't. Spoiler alert, we didn't. Right? And it's kind of the one great issue I've always had with the Phantasm franchise is I want to know a little bit more about that missing part.
Right.
Right? From small town
nice.
doctor to intergalactic warlord and slaver. Just even a bit. Tell me why the tall man thinks like that. Is there any Jebidah left in there? Does he regret his choice?
Right.
Even a moment of that would have been great, but instead, no, they're like, we'll blow him up with a Hemi orb. And you're like, what? What? You know?
Did the disembodied alien life form see Jebidah in that suit and say, man, that guy can wear a suit, and decide, like, I'm just going to steal his body.
It's a different suit. It's got one of those, like, fucking ribbon ties. You know what I mean? He went Little House on the Prairie to, like, Paul Bearer. It's like, dude, that's not the same suit. But that's what I mean. Who made him? Who made him? Did he just go to the Red World, stumble upon a random ER, and he's like, wait, I can just do these, sir, and became a mad scientist and built himself? Like, what happened? Like, show me at least a montage of how this happened. Is there some greater power than the tall man out there running this operation? Right? If it's just a multiverse full of 10,000 tall men, how did that fucking happen? I know he can walk through gates.
Yeah.
I know he can walk through gates. How did he become an army onto himself that then creates all these armies? How? Why? When he dies in part 2 and the start of part 3, we see a new tall man come out and throw him through the portal.
Yeah.
How does he know he died? He's obviously checking in on his home world a lot. What does that matter? Just bring 50 tall. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I needed something. I needed a little help here. And again, I'm not one of those American moviegoers that says you have to spoon feed me everything.
No.
I felt I was owed this moment. I was like, I've been with you, right? Critics and fans were leaving you. You didn't make enough box office, whatever. I've been with you. I never left. I support you. I tell my friends about you. I was owed.
You were like their
moment.
Reggie.
I'm the Reggie. I'm owed this moment of why. I needed this. I put my Ice Cream Man suit on and watched part 4, and I said, you owe me this reason. And they never did. And that hurts me. That hurts me.
I know.
Right? As Jody's fighting, and the tall man comes out, and we do our classic little battle. The only thing they give us is he goes, Ice Cream Man, it's all in your head. And I go, what? Right?
What?
That's the theme of this movie. Phantasm 4. What? Old-timey pioneer. What? Yeah. That's what it should have been called instead of Oblivion.
It's a cool sounding line, but it's kind of meaningless.
It's a cool sounding line that really led the script astray in part 5. But again, I think they did all of this amazing work that just really, like, it's one of those movies where you kind of pause it and you're like, oh fuck, there's only 20 minutes left. You're like, we're not getting like our awesome contemplative ending where like we learn about what happened to Jebidah Morningside. Like, oh, we're just going to fucking fight with the 4-barrel shotgun again.
Mm-hmm.
That's the movie
Explosions
we're doing.
in the desert. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, no, why no? And yeah, it just ends with Mike like maybe dying and Reggie runs into a portal. And as of all the Phantasm endings, this is the one that most deflated me. Because you know what I mean? They did such a fucking great job. If I make a beautiful wedding cake and then I stand above it and piss on it, right? Like a long pee that just runs down the whole cake. No one is saying, hey, but you did a good job on those 5 layers.
No.
That's to me is the Phantasm 4 problem. Amazing structural cake.
Yes.
Drizzled from the top. Unedible. Right. This is better than a pea-soaked birthday cake.
Well,
but barely.
I was reading, online, doing a little just kind of half-ass research, and that there was a lot of talk after this about, is there going to be another sequel? And I can kind of see why, because with that ending, you're like, that can't be it.
They definitely left room. Like when Reggie hops in the portal, they wanted to leave an out.
Of course.
But I do feel like when they were writing the story, they knew in their hearts this could be it.
It could be. And that beautiful moment in the ice cream truck where Reggie hears grown-up Mike saying, I'm dying. This, this voice that he hears. And then he asks young Mike, and Mike says, it's just the wind. Like, that's really beautiful. Like, that would be a beautiful moment to end this whole thing.
That he saved the tall man, and now they're bonded, and so now he's hearing things from the distant future, but still has the fortitude to chase down and fight this possibly unwinnable battle.
Right.
That's nice and poetic.
Yeah.
Love that. If I wasn't seething mad...
Right.
That he got blown up by a fucking car with an orb in it instead of giving me the moment I've watched 4 movies for.
Yeah.
I had one question for 4 movies. Why is the tall man? That's all I want. Why is he doing what he's doing? Like, give me one fucking line other than the flesh is imperfect. Humans are stupid. I have power to destroy. Why?
Right.
That's all I've wanted for 4 fucking movies is for the tall man to say one thing about why his mission is important, and he never, ever does. And it fucking hurts my feelings. I can sit here on our podcast and bullshit like I always do. Yeah, you've heard the show a lot. We like to bullshit and make things up that aren't there.
Of course.
This is the one time I just wanted him to fucking tell me something. I wanted to hear from this bad guy who I still kind of like, right? I wanted to hear one thing about why he became what he is. They set us up perfect, and they didn't fucking deliver anything.
It was not to be.
And it fucking hurts me. That's my thing, is I really love this movie, right? Reggie's having a blast. I love the orb tits. I love Mike's kind of existential crisis. It's fun. And then you pause it and you're like, oh my God, we're out of movie. Like,
where's the rest of it?
Out of movie, and we're not going to do anything. And that fucking hurts. I imagine myself and you and Angus Scrimm and Don Coscarelli and our Bud Light commercial in another universe where they explain all this to me in a way that I love.
Right.
And I can make the case that Phantasm is the greatest horror franchise ever. C'est la vie. Is not to be. If you were ranking Part 4 as a franchise, this is low. Hellraiser in space, maybe it's better than that. But I don't think so. I like going back to the old French time when he's a toy maker and they're the space station, whatever. Friday the 13th 4 kills this. Halloween 4 kills this. And I don't even love Part 5, but Part 4 is good.
Right.
Part 4 of Nightmare is Dream Child, maybe?
I think.
It's the one right after Dream Warriors. Still good, right? Maybe the Screaming Soul Pizza, still pretty good, right? Candyman 4 is the reboot, so that one's way fucking better than this. Evil Dead 4 is the reboot, way fucking better. Child's Play 4 is also the reboot, right? How many? No, this is Bride of Chucky. That one's way better. Right? So
I think
Leprechaun 4 is in the hood.
I wonder if part of the challenge here is other franchises they'll do where they'll take one of the sequels and they'll retcon stuff, or they'll like kind of change the continuity so that previous sequels don't matter, so they can just change course. And this one of the things we enjoy about the Phantasm series is that continuity and just the story through time. And maybe that's also part of what hurts it, is that maybe Don Coscarelli didn't have the answer.
Yeah. When it's so specific and connected and you can't break and just be like, hey, forget that movie. All right, so I'm looking at it now. Nightmare 4 was Dream Master. Awesome. Return of Michael Myers, people were fucking pumped about. Texas Chainsaw, The Next Generation, not great, but has McConaughey and Zellweger, right? We just watched that. Saw 4, I'm not a huge Saw guy, period. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
I think you could make an argument this is one of the lowest ranked part 4s, and that sucks because I would have said part 3's up there.
Sure, yeah.
I think part 1 is up there. I think part 2,
I gotta say,
probably.
though, I agree, and at the same time, I really did have fun with this movie.
I agree.
And I don't know why.
I agree. I'm saying,
I don't know
imagine
why.
an ending where we hear from Jebidah Morningstar through the decrepit old injured body of this tall man, where he's just like, there will be another of me coming in a moment, but here is this one last breath from the last bit of human to me, to you, Mike, who's now dying and will make the choice whether you'll become like me or like Jebidah. Yeah. If they had tied that bow for us.
Show him how it happened.
Him and Mike are both dying because of the explosion. Right? And Jebedah's like, there's no hope for me. The next me's coming now. Right? And Mike has to decide which road he takes. They pay that off. This movie's fucking 3 times better than it ended up.
I agree. No,
and I don't even know how you do it. I'm just saying the story is Mike is trying not to. In one flashback in the movie, we actually see Mike in the tall man outfit.
Yeah.
Reggie turns and sees tall Mike. That's the journey we're telling, is that he is on his way to transform into whatever. And Mike
according to the tall man, he's
destined
for that.
Yeah, Mike never makes the choice. The tall man doesn't really explain the choice, show us the stakes of making that first step.
Yeah.
That hurt me. That hurt me. In an otherwise really fucking fun Phantasm romp.
You know what could have been really cool? If in the other realm, Jebidah got into some kind of a wager in a game, because he's always talking about the game. Like, it could have been some
they never talk about the game enough. Why does he like the fucking game? Right. If life and death is just a game, why do you care so much? You know what I mean? There's 10,000 of you, it doesn't matter. You have unlimited one-ups.
Yeah. No, I hear you, my friend.
It felt like they were on their way to this epic finale, and it just crumbled a lot. That's what hurt me.
Yeah.
But again, to your point, an amazing ride most of the way.
Most of the way.
For Phantasm 4, that's not it. Believe it or not, there's yet another Phantasm. That's our mission here. We talk entire franchises, and that's part of the fun of the journey, is when you get to those Shaggy Your Dog entries, churning through to see what they have to offer. Phantasm 5 Oblivion, or Ravager.
Ravager, yes.
Is another unique experience in the Phantasm mythology that we will talk about. And our mandate will be we each have to say 3 nice things we like about it before anything else. That's the game. That's the game next time.
Yes, that's the game. Mind how you play the game.
Yeah, mind how you play the game, lady. You played a good game. All right. The YouTube Film Alchemist, the email filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. If you want all the movies this October for this mega marathon, you see all the work we're putting in. Patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. That's how you get the remaining 3 movies. It just sounds better to have 31 pods in 31 days instead of 28.
No,
So
you
go
want
on
all
over
the episodes.
there. You want
Promise,
all the damn
trust
episodes.
me.
go on over there to patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. Carmelita, where can they find you?
I'm on Twitter still. I'm hanging on for dear life.
And Letterboxd.
And
we all like Letterboxd.
We do like Letterboxd. Same handle for both, @Carmelita Says.
All right, that's it. I hope you guys are enjoying October so far. This is our favorite time of year. Carmelita and I will be back tomorrow to finish out, or maybe mercifully finish off, the Phantasm franchise. You'll have to tune in tomorrow.
The coup de grace.